Locals warned me about the road. Now I know why. The first drive. It started with the kind of warning you brush off too easily. Half-spoken advice from tight-lipped locals, passed off with a nervous glance or a muttered prayer. Don't drive Old Harlow Road after dark, the gas station attendant had said, almost in a whisper, especially not alone. I remember smiling politely, assuming it was small-town superstition or just another ghost story to keep bored kids entertained. But I wish I'd listened. I really do. It was early evening when I left the diner just outside of Dry Creek. The sun had already begun its descent, stretching long, golden shadows across the cracked pavement. My GPS had rerouted me again, and I didn't feel like arguing with it this time. Old Harlow Road was shorter, more direct, and according to the little blue line on my screen, the fastest way back to my rental cabin. That same road, the one the locals had clearly warned me about, twisted through the woods like a serpent on a map. As I turned onto it, the asphalt narrowed suddenly, lined by towering pine trees that seemed to lean closer than they should. The canopy overhead thickened, blocking out most of the remaining sunlight. I rolled down the window slightly to let in the cool forest air, trying to shake the weird feeling creeping up the back of my neck. The road was completely deserted. Not a single car had passed me in the silence, except for the soft rumble of my tires and the occasional crunch of gravel, was absolute. Then I noticed it, a shape standing at the side of the road. At first, I thought it was a deer, but as I approached, it didn't move. It wasn't animal-like at all. It stood upright, thin and motionless. A man, maybe? But the closer I got, the more wrong it looked. The limbs were too long. The head slightly tilted, like it didn't understand how necks were supposed to work. And though the face was cloaked in shadow, I could swear something glinted, eyes reflecting inhumanly. I blinked, and it was gone. I slammed the brakes out of reflex, heart hammering in my chest. The tires squealed against the cracked road, and the car skidded slightly. I stared into the woods where the figure had been, squinting against the deepening dark. Nothing. No movement. No sound. Just trees and shadows that felt like they were breathing. Probably just tired, I muttered to myself, forcing a nervous laugh. The GPS chirped cheerfully. Continue for 7 miles. That was all. 7 more miles. I could handle that. I resumed driving, this time a little slower. The road narrowed further, the forest on either side becoming dense and wild, like it hadn't been touched in years. Thick vines coiled around dead trees. Moss crept up from the forest floor to the edge of the road like hungry fingers. It felt wrong, like I was entering a place not meant for people. Then the radio started crackling. I hadn't even turned it on. Static hissed through the speakers, sharp and sudden, followed by faint whispers that didn't belong to any station. I reached for the dial and turned it off. The static continued. That's when I realized it wasn't coming from the radio at all. It was something else. Turn around. A voice whispered, so faint I thought I imagined it. I gripped the steering wheel tighter. Just tired, I told myself again, though the words sounded ridiculous now. Something was definitely wrong with this road. I glanced at my phone to check for a signal. No bars. Of course. Then the smell hit me, like something rotting, like roadkill left out in the sun for days. It was strong, so strong I gagged. I rolled up the window, but the stench clung to the air inside like it had already seeped into the vents. That's when I saw it. A car, an old, rusted station wagon, abandoned off the shoulder just ahead. Its windows were shattered. One tire was completely missing. Vines had begun to crawl over the hood. The driver's door was still open, swinging slightly in the wind. I slowed down, heart racing. The moment I passed it, something banged, hard, on my trunk. My scream caught in my throat. I jerked the wheel instinctively, swerving to the right, nearly crashing into the trees. I stopped the car and threw it in park, lungs heaving. My hands were trembling so badly I could barely undo the seatbelt. I didn't want to get out. Every part of me screamed not to, but I had to know what that sound was. Maybe it was just debris. Maybe an animal. Maybe nothing. I stepped out slowly. The night air was deathly still, the forest watching. I crept to the back of the car, holding my breath. Nothing. The trunk was untouched. No dents. No scratches. No branches. No rocks. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the footprints. Wet, muddy footprints. Human. Bare. Leading away from my car and into the woods. I didn't wait to investigate. I ran back into car and locked the doors. I didn't care if I wrecked the tires. I floored it. The wheels spun against the gravel before finally catching, and I sped down the winding road, eyes fixed ahead. That's when the lights went out. All of them. Headlights, dashboard, interior. I was plunged into blackness, so complete it felt like drowning. The engine still roared beneath me, but I couldn't see where I was going. I slammed the brakes again, skidding blindly, and the car jerked violently to the side. I must have hit something, because I heard a sickening crunch. And then everything stopped. I sat there, frozen. My breathing was loud in the silence. Then, without warning, the lights flickered back on. But I wasn't on the road anymore. My car was deep in the woods, surrounded by trees that had no right to be there. Twisted, skeletal things with branches like claws, reaching for the car. The road was gone, completely. I should have been in a ditch or smashed against a tree, but somehow I was parked perfectly. The GPS screen lit up again. It displayed a new message. You were warned. I stared at it, a cold sweat dripping down my back. I tried the ignition. Nothing. The car was dead now. And then from the edge of the forest, I saw them. Eyes. Dozens of them, glowing faintly, watching, blinking in sync. Moving slowly, closer. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My voice was caught in my throat like a stone. I scrambled for my phone again. Still no signal. I locked the doors again, knowing it wouldn't matter. Not to whatever those things were. Then I heard the whisper again. This time, right behind me. Turn around. I did. There was nothing in the back seat. And yet, the condensation on the window next to me read, We see you. The lost hour. I sat frozen in the front seat, barely breathing. The words scrawled in the condensation, asterisk, we see you, asterisk, lingered longer than they should have, as if mocking my disbelief. I rubbed at the window with my sleeve, hoping I'd imagined it, but the words were still there, etched, not written from the inside, not written from the outside, just there. My heart hammered in my chest as I stared at the woods. The glowing eyes were gone now, vanished like they'd never existed. Only the trees remained, towering, twisted silhouettes that leaned closer the longer I looked. My fingers hovered over the car's ignition again. It was still dead. No lights, no engine, just the ticking of something invisible, like the sound of a clock buried under the dirt. Then the quiet broke. It wasn't loud, not at first, just a soft, wet, dragging sound, like bare feet sliding over leaves and broken twigs. It circled the car. Slow, deliberate. I turned slowly in my seat, every inch of my body tense, waiting for something, anything, to move. Nothing did, but I could feel it. Something was out there, watching, getting closer. I pulled out my phone again. Still no service. No battery percentage either. Just a black screen, like it had been drained along with everything else. I didn't even get the chance to unlock it before it died completely. Then, without warning, the car's radio came back to life. But it didn't play music. It didn't even spit static this time. It played me. My voice. From earlier that day. Yeah, I'm headed out to that rental cabin, just outside Dry Creek. I stared in horror as my own words repeated through the speakers. Only now they were distorted, warped, slowed down, twisted. My voice was laughing at the end of the recording, but I hadn't laughed. I had never laughed. The laugh was something else. Something inside the recording. Something that didn't belong to me at all. I slammed the radio off, but it kept playing. You can take Old Harlow Road. No traffic this time of night. My mouth went dry. I hadn't said that. I knew I hadn't said that. Something was rewriting my words, manipulating them. I opened the car door and stepped out into the night, needing to get away from that sound, even if it meant stepping into the trees. The air was heavy, thick with something almost liquid, like the forest was breathing fog. A strange vibration filled the ground, like distant footsteps echoing beneath the soil. The stench had returned, decay and damp earth and something older than rot. I turned in slow circles, trying to find the road. But it was gone, completely gone. Just trees now. And then I saw her, a girl, standing barefoot in the woods, not 10 feet away. Pale skin, long black hair matted with leaves and mud. Her head tilted at an unnatural angle. Her dress was torn and soaked with something dark. She stared at me with eyes that shimmered like ink, too large for her face. I couldn't move. She lifted one hand, slowly, jerkily, and pointed behind me. I turned. There was nothing but my car. But when I looked back at her, she was gone. The dragging sound returned, this time closer. I spun toward the source and saw something crawling between the trees. Not walking, crawling, its limbs twisted in ways I didn't think were possible. It was thin, gone even, but fast. Too fast. It darted between the trunks, just barely visible through the gaps in the trees, almost like it was playing with me. I bolted. I didn't even think. I just ran, through branches and roots and uneven ground. I didn't care about the cuts on my arms or the low-hanging vines clawing at my face. I just ran, and somehow I made it back to the road. It was there again, just there, like it had never disappeared. The strip of faded asphalt under moonlight, cracked, ancient and waiting. My car was still parked in the woods, but I didn't go back for it. I didn't want to. I didn't trust it. I followed the road on foot, adrenaline giving me the strength to keep going, even though I didn't know where I was anymore. The trees eventually began to thin. The silence changed, less oppressive, less alive, and then I saw the light. A single porch light, barely glowing, attached to an old weathered building at the edge of the forest. It looked like a ranger station or maybe a hunting shack. Faded wood, windows clouded with dust. But light meant people. Light meant help. I ran up the steps and knocked. No answer. I knocked again, louder this time. The door creaked open. Inside was a small room, table, radio, 2 chairs, and a cot. Empty. Dust coated everything. Yet the bulb still glowed weakly overhead. I stepped inside, calling out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" Nothing. Then I saw the map, tacked to the wall. A hand-drawn map of the area. The forest, the roads, my cabin, all sketched in fading ink. But Old Harlow Road had been crossed out in red, scribbled over like someone had been desperate to erase it from the landscape. Next to the red line were 4 words scrawled in uneven handwriting. Don't follow the signs. That's when I noticed the clock on the wall. It read 2:03 a.m. That couldn't be right. I had turned onto the road just after 7 p.m. I pulled my phone out again and turned it on. The screen lit up 2:03 a.m. Battery, 84%. Full signal. What? The last call on my phone showed I had tried to dial 911 at 1:48 a.m. My call history said it lasted 7 minutes. I had no memory of it. My hand started shaking. I checked the audio files. There was a recording. I hit play, and what I heard chilled me to my core. It was my voice, whispering, crying, rambling in a voice I didn't recognize as my own. Something about the black trees and the watchers, and they know the names you forget. At one point, I begged them to let me go. Then silence. Then laughter. That same low, distorted laughter from the radio. And then a voice whispered, "You're already part of the road now." I dropped the phone. I couldn't be here anymore. I grabbed the map, stuffed it in my jacket, and bolted from the shack. The road stretched ahead again. Still no traffic. Still silent. But now it felt different. Not safer, just clearer, like the game had changed. And then I saw them. Mile markers. But they weren't normal. Not numbered. They had symbols on them. Black symbols etched into stone posts at even intervals. Some looked like eyes. Others like spirals. One looked like an open mouth. I didn't follow the road. I followed the map. It led me into the trees again, but this time I knew where I was going. The cabin wasn't far. If I could just make it there, maybe I could lock the door and wait until daylight. The forest was louder now, alive again. The eyes returned, but I ignored them. I ran until I burst through the trees and saw the porch light of my cabin. Relief flooded through me. I sprinted up the steps, unlocked the door, and slammed it behind me. Inside, silence. Normal. For a moment. Then I noticed a fire in the hearth. Lit. I never lit it. And sitting in the chair beside it was the girl. The same one from the woods. Still barefoot. Still broken. But smiling now. She tilted her head at me again. Then whispered, "You made it through the first night. Most don't." The girl in the firelight. She sat in the wooden chair like she belonged there. Like she always had. The firelight lit the walls, casting dancing shadows that stretched far too long across the floor. Her eyes locked with mine. Deep, hollow, like staring down a well with no bottom. I didn't speak at first. My voice had all but vanished. I was soaked in sweat. Dirt smudged across my face. My clothes torn from the forest. But her calmness, it was unnatural. Too still. Too knowing. What are you? I finally croaked, though I barely recognized my own voice. She smiled wider. I'm the memory they left behind. Her voice wasn't child's. It wasn't even human. It sounded like something pretending to be a voice. Soft but distorted, like a warped recording. It shifted in pitch, almost musical. Almost comforting, if it hadn't been so wrong. I saw you in the woods. I whispered. You pointed at the car. She nodded. And you followed. That's good. It means you're not like the others. Her smile faded. Most drive until the road eats them. I stared at her, confused. Eats them? She turned her head slightly, the bones in her neck making a sickening crack. The road has rules. Few ever learn them. Fewer survive them. I looked around the cabin. It was just as I left it earlier that afternoon. My bag was by the couch. My phone charger still plugged in. Everything was normal, except for her and the fire. I want to leave, I said, more to myself than to her. I want to get back to town, to people. Her face grew solemn. You left people behind when you turned onto that road. Didn't you feel it? The way the air changed? How your thoughts got quieter. She stood now, slowly, like a puppet pulled upward. That road is old, older than the forest. It remembers every step, every scream, every mistake. I didn't make a mistake, I said defensively. I didn't know. Her head tilted again. But you were warned. A shiver ran through me. The gas station attendant, the woman at the diner, all of them had warned me in their own quiet way. I thought they were superstitious, just locals with campfire tales. I never thought, why are you here? I asked her, why follow me? Her bare feet stepped across the creaking floor. Because something else followed you too. At that, the fire suddenly hissed, louder than it should have. The flames bent backward, sucked toward the hearth as if recoiling from something. And then silence. The girl stepped away from the chair. Her body faded as she moved, her outline becoming translucent, like smoke. Her voice, however, stayed. Don't leave tonight. Don't sleep. Don't answer the knock. She vanished completely. The fire went out, and in the absence of its light, the darkness pressed against the windows like a living thing. I backed away from the hearth slowly, reaching for the light switch, but the power had died again. The cabin was pitch black now, the silence outside too heavy, like the world had paused to listen. I closed every curtain, every window, and locked the front door twice. Then I sat in the center of the living room with nothing but a flashlight and the map I'd taken from Shack. That's when I noticed something new. A circle, drawn in pencil, that hadn't been there before. Around the cabin. Tiny handwritten words beside it. Sanctuary. For now. I stared at those words for a long time. For now. What did that mean? My flashlight flickered. I hit it once, twice, before it steadied again. Then came the first knock. Not a loud one. Not angry or urgent. Just soft, polite, like someone outside didn't wake me, but hoped I'd open the door anyway. I didn't move. Another knock, slightly louder. 3 raps, steady, deliberate, then a voice, familiar. Hey, you dropped your phone charger in the woods. Thought you might need it. My blood froze. It was my voice. I didn't respond. I didn't breathe. The voice repeated, clearer this time. Come on, open up. I just want to help you. I backed up until I hit the wall. The flashlight began flickering again, this time faster. Outside, footsteps circled the cabin. They were heavy, wrong, like claws scraping against the wood. Something banged on the back door. Then the voice came again from the window now. You know you can't stay in there forever. I raised a flashlight and aimed it at the window, but nothing was there, just my own reflection. My pale face staring back at me. But then the reflection smiled. I wasn't smiling. The flashlight died. Total darkness. My breath caught in my throat as every window creaked. The wood moaned. The air inside the cabin dropped 10 degrees in seconds. I could see my breath now. Every instinct told me not to move. Don't open the curtains. Don't speak. Don't run. A scraping sound echoed through the walls. Nails or claws dragging along the outside. Then the girl's voice again, echoing from inside my head. It's testing you. I collapsed into the corner, clutching the useless flashlight, eyes locked on the front door. The doorknob jiggled. Then silence. An hour passed. Maybe 2. Eventually, the power blinked back on. The lights flickered to life. The fire in the hearth spontaneously reignited. The cabin returned to normal, as if none of it had ever happened. But I knew better. I checked the clock. 3:33 a.m. My phone came back to life. Dozens of missed calls. All blank, from a number with no digits. I opened the voice recorder app. There was a new file. I played it. Static. Then something breathing. Slow. Wet. Heavy. Then my voice again. But I hadn't recorded anything. This time I was crying. I don't want to be here. Please. I'll go back. I'll never take that road again. Then the voice answered. You never left. I shut the phone off and threw it across the room. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. I sat there with the fire until the morning light bled through the windows. And when it finally did, I opened the front door. The woods were still there, but the road was gone. Only footprints remained, mine, leading nowhere. The house with no path. Morning should have brought relief. But all it gave me was a realization that whatever had started on Old Harlow Road wasn't finished. The sunlight was pale, sickly even, casting a yellow glow across the trees like it was filtered through something unclean. I stepped onto the porch, hoping to see gravel or tire tracks, anything that resembled the road. But there was nothing, just dirt, grass, and trees that looked like they had grown over the night. And worse, my car was gone. I ran around the cabin 3 times, scouring the forest line, even calling out into the trees like an idiot. But it was pointless. The road had vanished, and the forest felt endless now, deeper, older, like it had expanded while I slept, or while I tried not to. I went back inside and grabbed the map. That little hand-drawn thing had suddenly become my only guide. I traced my finger across the faded ink again. There it was, my cabin circled, and just a few inches northwest a symbol. Not a town, not a road, just a crooked house drawn in black ink with the word, Watcher's Hollow. Underneath it, in smaller writing, someone had scrawled, "If you're not lost yet, you will be there." I didn't know what that meant, but I knew I couldn't stay here. The cabin might have been a sanctuary for one night, but that protection felt brittle now, like glass under pressure. It was only a matter of time before whatever was out there came back. Stronger, smarter. I packed the essentials, flashlight, matches, water, the map, and set out toward the direction of the crooked house. The forest swallowed me quickly. It wasn't just the trees. It was the way the terrain shifted underfoot. One moment the ground was firm. The next it was soft and spongy, like moss covering old bones. Every few feet, I'd hear something behind me. twigs snapping, leaves rustling. I never saw anything, but I knew I wasn't alone. I came across a rusted sign buried in ivy about an hour into the hike. It looked like it once said Dry Creek Nature Preserve, but now it was scratched up violently with symbols like the ones on the mile markers. Spirals, eyes, teeth. One symbol had been etched deep in the rest. A hand, palm open, with an eye drawn in the center. I pressed on. As I walked, the trees began to lean again, not from the wind, but toward me. Their trunks arched. Their branches curled like they were craning to listen. It was subtle at first, then more obvious. I picked up my pace. After maybe 2 hours, though time had become unreliable, I found it, the house. It didn't belong here. That was my first thought. It was tall, narrow, and grotesquely out of place, like a Victorian manor that had been melted and rebuilt by someone with no understanding of human architecture. The wood was blackened, warped by time or fire. The windows were tall and thin, all dark, though I felt eyes behind every one of them. There was no visible path leading to or from it, no driveway, no mailbox, just a house, sitting crooked on a patch of land that seemed to hum with low energy. I approached carefully. The front door had a knocker shaped like a screaming mouth. Not a lion, not a gargoyle, just a stretched, open jaw. I didn't want to touch it, but I did. The knock echoed longer than it should have, like it traveled down a tunnel that stretched into some other dimension. I waited, and when no one answered, I tried the knob, unlocked. Of course. Inside, the air was thick, not dusty, like you'd expect in an abandoned place, but heavy, wet, like a basement that had flooded and never fully dried. The wallpaper peeled in long, curling strips. The wood beneath my feet creaked with every step, but not in a normal way. It was deliberate creaking, like the house was trying to announce my presence to someone or something. The front hallway was lined with mirrors, dozens of them, all mismatched, some tall and narrow, others cracked. Every single one reflected not just me, but versions of me, distorted. In one, my eyes were missing. In another, I was smiling, even though I wasn't. One mirror showed me walking backward, matching my every move with terrifying precision. I covered that one with a nearby cloth and kept moving, deeper into the house. The floor plan twisted. Rooms didn't make sense. A kitchen led into a library. The library's books were all blank. The walls of the bathroom were covered in handprints, some small, others far too large. At the end of one long hallway, I found a door with no handle, just that same hand with an eye symbol burned into the wood. I raised my hand and pressed it against the symbol. Warm. The door clicked and slowly opened. Inside was a study. Old, decaying books on every shelf. A desk, and behind it, an old man, or at least something shaped like one. His skin was gray, his eyes white and blind-looking, but they tracked me perfectly. He wore a tattered suit, as if he'd been waiting for someone for a very, very long time. "You found the hollow," he rasped, voice dry as paper. "I didn't think you'd make it." I didn't sit down. I didn't speak. "You saw her, didn't you?" he continued. "The girl, in the firelight." I nodded. She was the first. The forest made her. Or maybe she made the forest. Hard to remember now. "What is this place?" I asked. He chuckled, and the sound was wrong. "This is where the road leads when it's finished testing you." I didn't ask for any of this. I snapped. I didn't do anything wrong. He leaned forward, the skin on his face stretching too far. "You took the road. That was enough. It only reveals itself to those it can use. The curious, the forgotten, the hollowed-out ones." I backed away. "Why me?" I demanded. "You heard the warnings, but you chose to ignore them. That's what it feeds on. The moment you disbelieved, you were marked." I turned to run, but the door had vanished behind me. Just a solid wall now. "You have one choice left," he said, standing slowly. "You stay here, become part of the house, or you finish the journey. The road may not be gone. It just might be beneath you now." "What does that mean?" I cried, but he didn't answer. Instead, He stepped backward into the shadow of the study and disappeared. And then I was alone. The books on the shelves began whispering, words rising from their blank pages like smoke. I covered my ears and dropped to the floor, but the voices got louder. One repeated phrase, again and again. Turn around, turn around, turn around. And when I finally did, I saw the door. Back again. But this time it was open, and behind it, stairs, leading down into darkness. Beneath the floorboards, asterisk, asterisk. The stairs waited. Narrow, crooked, swallowed by blackness, so dense it looked solid. I stood at the threshold, my breath shallow. That whisper still rang in my ears. Asterisk, turn around, turn around, turn around. Asterisk, but it wasn't a warning anymore. It felt like an invitation. My flashlight had died hours ago. All I had now was the fading glow of the house behind me. Flickering like it, too, was afraid of what lay below. I stepped onto the first stair. It groaned under my weight, not the usual creak of old wood, but a low, wet sound like stepping on something still alive. My hand brushed the wall for balance. The surface pulsed subtly, almost like breathing. I descended slowly. The light behind me faded, swallowed step by step, until I was blind. The darkness was thick, tactile. I couldn't see my hands in front of my face. I pressed on, guided by the sensation of the walls pressing around me. Then I heard it, a heartbeat, faint but real, not mine. It came from below. I kept going. The stairs twisted without warning, first to the left, then downward at a sharper angle, as if no longer following earthly logic. The air grew warmer, then humid. My skin began to itch. I passed through cobwebs thick enough to catch my breath in my throat. And then, finally, I reached the bottom. The floor was soft, spongy. I knelt and touched it. Not dirt, not stone. Flesh, vein, pulsing. The room stretched endlessly into the dark. No walls, no ceiling. Just black void filled with the gentle thud, thud, thud of the heartbeat growing louder with each step I took. Shapes moved in the distance, slow and serpentine, just beyond sight. The smell was unbearable. Rotten sulfur and something sweet, like spoiled fruit. Every breath was a struggle. Then I saw them. Rows of doors. Dozens. Each one stood upright in the void, unattached to any wall. Each a different style. Some modern, others ancient, carved with symbols I didn't understand. And above them, suspended in the air, floated signs. Words written in languages I almost recognized. But one door, one in the center, had my name carved into it. Not painted, carved, deep and ragged. I walked to it in a daze. The wood bled where my name had been inscribed. Not metaphorically. Actual blood wept from the grooves of each letter, running down the grain and pooling beneath. I turned the handle. The door didn't open to a room. It opened to a memory. My memory. I stood in the middle of my childhood bedroom. Exactly how I remembered it. Same posters on the wall. Same cracked closet mirror. Even the broken lamp I'd never fixed. Outside the window, though, was not my suburban street. It was a forest. Old Harlow Road, stretching endlessly under a purple sky. I heard my voice again, this time younger, crying. I turned and saw myself, maybe 10 years old, curled up on the bed, and standing over me, my mother, only it wasn't her. Not really. Her eyes were empty, hollow sockets. Her mouth moved with a sound I'd never heard before, like radio static made of screams. She didn't comfort me. She just stood there, twitching, her hands writhing like they were full of insects. I backed out of the room, heart racing. The moment I passed through the doorframe, the memory dissolved into smoke. The heartbeat below ground thundered now. I turned and saw the other doors opening. One by one, from each, people emerged. Some were missing limbs. Others had no eyes. A few looked just like me, exactly like me. Duplicates, wrong ones. Their mouths didn't move when they spoke. Instead, the words dripped from their skin, trailing in the air like black thread. "We took the road, too," they whispered in unison. "We tried to leave, but there's no leaving. Not really. I stumbled backward, panic flooding in. I screamed at them to stay away, but they didn't move closer. They just watched. Then the girl appeared again. Not a vision this time. She stepped through one of the doors, barefoot and calm, her eyes impossibly dark. "I told you not to come here," she said. I couldn't breathe. "What is this place?" She gestured to the endless black void. "This is the marrow, the spine of the road. Every soul who walks it leaves something behind. Every soul who dies on it becomes part of it. You mean it's alive?" She nodded. "It was made alive a long time ago by those who fed it, those who built it as a boundary between worlds. Now it just feeds on the curious." The others began to hum, low and tuneless, like a lullaby sung by corpses. I grabbed the girl's shoulders. "How do I get out? How do I get back?" She didn't flinch. "You don't go back, but you can go forward." "To where?" "To where the road ends." I shook my head. "There is no end." "There is," she said, "but only if you're willing to give something up." "What?" She stared at me for a long time, her voice suddenly soft. "Your name." "My name." "You're still remembered. That's what anchors you. But if you give that up, you can pass through the last gate." I looked back at the door with my name. Blood still dripped from the carving. "What happens if I do?" She didn't answer. Instead, she stepped back and pointed behind me. I turned. A new door had appeared, larger than the others, made of bones. The handle was a human hand, still twitching. Above it, in pale flame, were the words, "For those who wish to disappear." I walked to it, heart pounding, vision blurry. My mind screamed not to open it, but I reached for the handle anyway. And as I did, the girl whispered behind me, "This is where the road truly begins." The gate of forgetting. The handle twitched beneath my fingers. It felt warm, alive, its joints bent inward, as if trying to wrap around my hand before I even gripped it. The bones were smooth but slick, like they'd just been pulled from beneath skin. I hesitated, not because I didn't want to know what was behind the door, but because I knew deep down that opening it meant losing something I couldn't take back. My name, my anchor to who I was, to reality. I looked back. The other doors were closing now. Slowly, silently, the malformed versions of me had vanished, faded into whatever abyss they'd come from. Only the girl remained, standing by the first door I had opened, her face still calm, but her eyes mournful. "If you open it," she said, "you'll forget everything. Not at once, but it will unravel. First your memories, then your voice, eventually even the shape of your own soul. Then why do people open it?" I asked, my hand trembling on the bone handle. "Because staying here is worse." The heartbeat had grown thunderous now, vibrating the ground beneath my feet. The doors around me began to pulse with it, shaking in their frames even though they weren't attached to anything. The space around me folded slightly, as if the void itself were inhaling. Behind me, the girl stepped closer and placed something in my palm. A coin, old, weathered, with a single symbol etched on one side, the eye in hand. "Flip it when you're ready," she said. "One side leads back, the other leads through." I looked at the coin, then the door. "Is there really a way back?" I asked. She didn't answer. She just took a step into the darkness and disappeared. I stared at the coin for a long moment. Then I flipped it. It didn't land. It vanished in the air, evaporating into black mist before it touched the ground. And in that moment, the bone door creaked open on its own. A smell like old libraries and burned hair rolled out from inside. And something else, too. A whisper, faint but persistent, weaving into my thoughts like a song I forgot I knew. I stepped inside. The world beyond the door was not like the house, or the forest, or the bleeding ground I'd left behind. It was a hallway, long and endless, sterile white walls, fluorescent lights above, flickering in a rhythmic, buzzing pattern. The floor was tiled and clean, but slightly wet. No sound came from my footsteps, and yet the echoes of someone else's followed me closely. There were windows along the left wall. Each window looked into a different room. In one, I saw myself sitting in a chair, laughing with friends I barely remembered. In another, I stood in a hospital room beside a bed, my mother, tubes in her arms, smiling at me with glassy eyes. In the next, I was screaming at someone I loved, tears in both our eyes. Each room played out like a film reel. My life, all the pieces that defined me. The hallway was a museum of me. And the more I walked, the more the images behind the glass began to rot. Faces blurred, colors faded. Words spoken behind the glass became static. My memories were being devoured. That's when I realized I couldn't remember my name anymore. I stopped walking, heart thundering in my chest. What was my name? Why couldn't I say it? I backed away from the window in a panic and saw my reflection. Only it wasn't mine anymore. The figure in the glass had no eyes, no mouth, just skin stretched over bone, expressionless. A mannequin of who I used to be. I turned and ran. The hallway bent. Reality twisted. Doors opened around me and slammed shut before I could look inside. The lights above began to flicker violently, buzzing like insects trapped behind glass. Then, suddenly silence, and the hallway ended at a final door. This one wasn't made of wood, or bone, or metal. It was a mirror, a full-length floor-to-ceiling mirror, framed in silver and covering cracks that spiraled like veins. My reflection stood inside it, not copying me this time. It just stood still waiting, watching. Then it moved. It raised its hand and pressed it to the glass. I didn't move, and then it spoke. "You gave up everything," it said, voice hollow. "But the road still isn't finished with you." "I don't understand," I whispered. "Because you left your name," the reflection said. "But not your guilt, not your fear, and those things are what feed the road most of all." "What am I supposed to do?" The reflection grinned. "Finish it." Suddenly, the mirror shattered not outward, but inward, pulling my reflection with it. The glass cracked into darkness, revealing the final part of the road. Old Harlow, but wrong. It spiraled in impossible ways, twisting through canyons of bone, forests of hanging hands, and rivers made of static and ash. And at its center was a tower, black, crooked, pulsing with the same heartbeat I'd been hearing all along. I stepped through the broken mirror and onto the road again. It groaned beneath me. This version of it felt endless. The sky was purple and cloudless. Stars blinked above me, then rearranged themselves like eyes watching from heaven. I walked, step after step, toward the tower. And as I walked, signs appeared. Not made of wood or metal, but of flesh. They writhed slightly, and on each was written a memory I'd forgotten. First lie. First death you watched. The thing you let happen. I walked faster. The guilt pressed harder. The wind began to whisper. Asterisk, you knew. You always knew. You were warned. But you liked the way it felt, the thrill, the danger. Asterisk. I covered my ears, but the wind pushed through anyway. By the time I reached the base of the tower, I was shaking. It had no door, just a spiral staircase of vertebrae rising up the outside. I climbed, knees burning, hands slipping on the bone. At the top, nothing, just a platform and a single chair. I collapsed onto it, exhausted, and the heartbeat stopped. For the first time since Old Harlow Road, everything went silent. Then the girl's voice returned. "You've reached the spine," she said, from somewhere unseen. "This is where you make the final choice." "What choice?" "You go back, with all you've lost, or you stay and become the warning for someone else." I don't understand, but I did. I could wake up somewhere else. A hospital, a roadside ditch, broken, changed but alive, carrying this horror like a scar no one else could see. Or I could become part of it, like the girl, like the others, watching from the edges of the road, whispering warnings to travelers who would ignore them anyway, waiting for the next curious soul. I closed my eyes and whispered my name. Nothing happened, because I didn't have one anymore. Where the road watches back. Silence pressed against my ears like pressure underwater. The kind of silence that wasn't empty, but filled with 1,000 eyes blinking behind the veil. I sat in the chair at the top of the tower, staring into nothing Above me, below me, around me, there was no horizon anymore. Just the endless spiral of Old Harlow, wrapping around reality like a parasite. And I couldn't even remember what my voice used to sound like. I tried to whisper something, anything, but nothing left my lips. Not air, not sound, just a stillness, thick and suffocating. My thoughts began to blur, curling in on themselves. Names, faces, memories gone. The scent of coffee in the morning. My father's hand on my shoulder. A friend's laugh echoing down a hallway. All of it evaporated. That's when I realized I wasn't just losing myself. I was being rewritten. The tower beneath me pulsed, like a living creature digesting its meal. I stood, knees trembling, and turned in slow circles, trying to find an exit, a crack, a way out. But there was only one thing behind me now. A door, just like before. Plain, wooden, no handle, no inscription. But carved into its center, still wet and bleeding, was someone else's name. A name I didn't recognize. But I felt it, like it belonged to me once. Or maybe it would belong to me next. I stepped toward it. The tower groaned. Then I heard the girl again. Closer now. You shouldn't have come this far, she whispered behind me. I turned, and there she stood, barefoot, dirty, her eyes darker than any night sky. They don't let many reach the spine. But you, she tilted her head. You were stubborn. That's rare. Where does it go? I asked. My voice came out in fragments. Croaked. Warped. It didn't sound like me anymore. To the last mile, she replied. What happens there? She hesitated. Then softly, that's where you learn what the road really is. I looked at the door again. Something inside it moved. I heard the creak of wood. Not from a frame, but from something walking on the other side. It paced back and forth, slowly, rhythmically, like it knew I was there, waiting. I turned back to the girl. Is it alive? She nodded. Yes, but not in the way you think. What is it then? She walked to the edge of the tower and looked down into the void where the spiral road coiled like a sleeping serpent. Once, it was a path between places, a sacred passage between this world and the one beneath. But it was cursed, fed too long by fear, by guilt, by those who died with secrets in their hearts. Is that why it feeds on memories? She looked at me. It doesn't just feed. It collects. Every soul who forgets their name becomes part of the road's shape. You've seen them. The faces in the trees, the hands in the mud, the voices on the radio. I shivered. Why warn people at all? I asked. Her face changed just slightly. Something like pain flickered through her features. Because someone has to, and I didn't when I had the chance. The truth hit, like a blade to the chest. You were one of them. She nodded once. I was like you. I followed the road. I ignored the signs. I thought I was clever. I made it all the way here. And then she looked away. I chose wrong. What did you choose? She didn't answer. She pointed to the door. You don't have to open it, she said. You can stay here, become part of the warning. Whisper to the next soul. Help someone escape. I shook my head slowly. But no one listens, do they? She smiled bitterly. Not often. The door creaked again. I stepped toward it. Each step felt heavier, like walking into the ocean's pull. The heartbeat had returned now, deep and slow, like the road was asleep but dreaming of me. I pressed my hand to the wood. It was cold, and then it opened. The world beyond was a mirror of the road, but it was inverted. The sky was below. The trees grew upside down. The stars spun like flies around corpse. I stepped through and gravity shifted. I didn't fall. I folded into a new direction, one not built for human senses. The road here pulsed like a vein, red and wet beneath my feet. Every step I took echoed like a scream through miles of tunnel. The road felt me now. It knew me. It spoke in pulses and temperature, in shudders beneath my soles. I saw them again. The others, walking parallel to me. Some upright, some crawling, some dragging the weight of things I couldn't see. They didn't look at me, didn't speak. Their mouths had been sewn shut with thread made of light, but one of them broke away. A man. He stumbled toward me, mouth unstitched, eyes wide with panic. He grabbed my arm and choked out a single word. Asterisk and asterisk. Then something pulled him backward. Not a creature. The road. It opened beneath him like a mouth and swallowed him whole. I ran. I didn't know where or how, but my feet moved faster than thought. The world twisted around me. Time bled out. Past and future collided. I saw flashes, my own face aging, dying, screaming. I saw people I hadn't met yet. I saw fire, storm, silence, myself at the wheel of a car, turning onto a road that should not have been there. And then light. I burst through it, fell to the ground, gasping. I looked around. I was on a road. The road. But it was different now. It wasn't bleeding. It wasn't alive. It was just asphalt. Old. Worn. Familiar. Cars passed in the distance. I stood slowly. Behind me, nothing. No house. No tower. No girl. Just trees. And ahead of me, at the curve of the road, a gas station. The one I had passed the night. I took the turn. I walked toward it, heart pounding. A bell above the door jingled as I stepped inside. The smell of coffee and stale air hit me like a wave. The old man behind the counter looked up and smiled. You made it. I froze. You remember me? He nodded. Few do. Fewer come back. But you did. I stepped forward. What is this place? He leaned in. This? Just a station. But out there, he pointed toward the trees. That's where people go when they need to forget. Or when something out there decides they're too full of things that shouldn't be remembered. My hands trembled. Why me? He shrugged. Wrong place. Right time. Or maybe the opposite. I leaned on the counter, suddenly exhausted. What now? He reached under the counter and pulled out a set of car keys. Not my car. Just keys. Rusted, with a tag that read, "One last turn." You drive, he said. You choose. I stared at the keys. And in the distance, I heard the road breathe. One last turn. The keys felt heavier than they should have. I turned them over my hand, the tag swinging gently. Asterisk, one last turn. Asterisk, there was something unnerving about those words. Something final. The gas station buzzed faintly around me, fluorescent lights overhead flickering like nervous thoughts. The clerk didn't speak again. He just watched, quiet, knowing. I stepped outside. The sun had begun to set, casting long, amber shadows across the parking lot. For a moment, everything looked normal, too normal. The air was still unnaturally quiet. No wind, no birds, no insects. Just a road ahead, old, cracked, stretching beyond the trees. And the car. A dusty black sedan sat at the edge of the lot, engine off, windows fogged. I approached cautiously, half expecting to vanish before I reached it. But it didn't. It waited, patient, like it had always belonged to me. Inside, the dashboard held a single item, a folded paper map. No GPS, no phone, just that analog thing again, like the one I'd found back in the cabin. I unfolded it. This time, there was no scribbled sanctuary, no Watcher's Hollow, only a single road, looping infinite, and one that near the center, labeled in ink that looked fresh and wet. You are here. I looked up. The trees surrounding the station seemed taller now, leaning inward, closing in. The road behind me had faded to fog. No going back. I climbed into the car. The engine started on the first try. No sound from the radio, just soft static that didn't shift no matter how I adjusted the dial. The headlights flickered once, then held steady. And I drove. Not fast, not slow, just forward. The pavement hissed under the tires like it recognized me. Trees flew past, warped by motion. The sky turned from gold to red to purple, then black, starless, like ink spilling across glass. Then the signs started again. Only they weren't road signs now. They were messages, hand-painted, nailed to trees, hanging from power lines. Turn back. The mile ahead isn't real. You've already died once. I tried to ignore them, but they got worse. She's waiting. You forgot who you were. The road remembers. I gripped the wheel tighter. The road narrowed, then forked. No sign, no indicator. Just two paths. One that curved gently left, smooth and almost glowing, and one that veered right, narrow and jagged, shadows thick along the edges. I slowed to a stop. Then I saw it, in the rear view mirror. Her, the girl. She stood in the road behind me, not waving, not moving, just watching. Her eyes reflected the red of the taillights. No mouth, no feet touching the ground. I made the turn, right, into the dark. The moment I did, the car felt heavier, like I'd driven off the edge of something. The trees grew closer. The pavement cracked. And then, as the lights cut out, asterisk. For a few breathless seconds, I drove blind. No headlights, no dash, just silence and motion. Then the radio clicked. Not static, not music. A voice, mine, crying, begging, pleading. Please, I'll go back. I swear I'll go back, just let me out. It wasn't a memory. It was now. I punched the dash, turned the knobs. Nothing helped. The voice continued, then changed. It deepened, twisted, and became someone else. Someone older, familiar but not. You had your chance, it said. Now you ride until the end. I slammed the brakes. The car skidded to a stop. The world outside was wrong. The trees no longer stood. They hung, upside down, roots clawing the sky. The road ahead broke apart in segments, floating like puzzle pieces over an abyss. And across the gaps, I saw them. Others, cars frozen midair, some on fire, some shattered, and in one a face. Mine, but not now. Older, scarred, eyes sunken, screaming behind the glass. I blinked and the image vanished. The voice returned, soft, sibilant, in my ear. You turned. Now finish the ride. I shifted the car into drive, but the road dropped, like a roller coaster into hell. The vehicle plunged through darkness, gravity lost, spinning, twisting, until I landed, hard. Dust rose around the car. The road here was narrow, infinite, lined with mirrors on both sides. Dozens, hundreds, each one reflecting different versions of me. A child, a teenager, a virgin with blood on his hands, one walking into the forest, one never turning onto Old Harlow, 1,000 what-ifs, and at the end, barely visible, a single mirror larger than the rest. It pulsed with light. I drove toward it. The static on the radio gave way to music now, a lullaby, played backward. Then voices joined in, familiar ones. My parents, friends, people I'd forgotten. Do you remember? They sang. Do you remember who you were before the turn? I gritted my teeth. I'm still me. But the mirrors begged to differ. One cracked as I passed, shattering into black smoke. Another showed me driving straight off a cliff. Another showed me smiling as I picked up the map in the cabin, as if I wanted this. At last, I reached the final mirror. It towered over the car. Inside it, I saw myself, standing alone in a vast white room. No doors, no windows, just silence. Then he looked at me. I looked at me, and he spoke. None of this was real. I screamed. Asterisk then what is? Asterisk. He smiled, and the mirror shattered. I gasped, and I was somewhere else, on a hospital bed, bright lights above, for in my arm, heart monitor beeping, nurses shouting, "He's awake! He's awake!" I blinked through tears, vision blurry, heart thudding in my chest like a cage thing. A woman leaned over me, my sister. "Oh my God! You were missing for 6 days." I tried to speak. No voice, just a whisper. She squeezed my hand. "We found your car off Old Harlow. You must have crashed. We thought." Her voice broke. I didn't cry. Not yet. because outside the hospital window, across the parking lot, I saw it, the gas station, just sitting there, empty, watching, and behind it, deep in the woods, the road waited, still breathing, still hungry, still mine, the passenger seat. They told me I'd been unconscious for nearly a week. Found in my car, engine off, seatbelt still on, eyes wide open, just staring at the dashboard. No head trauma, no drugs, no explanation. They called it catatonic dissociation. Said maybe I panicked, swerved off the road. My mind shut down to protect itself. But that wasn't the truth. I hadn't left the road. I'd been claimed by it. And even now, I could feel it under my skin, humming in my veins like a second pulse. The world looked the same on the surface. Nurses made their rounds. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. My sister brought me coffee and 4 smiles. But every now and then, something slipped. A shadow too long in the hallway. A nurse standing still, staring at my door for minutes at a time, unblinking. A whisper from the hospital intercom, saying my name when no announcement had been made. It was following me. No, not following. It was inside me now. I was released after 4 days. They gave me pills, a recovery plan, a therapist. No one asked why I kept looking in the rearview mirror. Back home, things felt unfamiliar, not just distant, wrong. The furniture was in the same places. My bed still creaked in the same way. But the corners of the house seemed to shift when I wasn't looking. The walls felt closer. The mirror seemed deeper. And worst of all, my reflection started doing things I didn't. Small things at first. A blink I didn't make. A smile I didn't feel. Then, one night, I caught it standing still while I turned away. It didn't follow. It just watched. I covered the mirrors after that. I tried to avoid roads. Took the bus. Walked. But it didn't matter. I kept seeing it. On signs. In windows. On every map. Old Harlow Road. And each time it was closer. Then one night, I woke to the sound of an engine idling outside. I looked out my bedroom window. There it was. The black sedan. No driver. No lights. Just sitting in the street. Waiting. I didn't go out. Not that night. But the next morning, it was still there. And on the windshield, under the wiper, was the map. Again. Unfolded. This time, there were no roads. No forests. Only a single black spiral. And at the center, 2 words. Get in. I fought it. Days passed. I ignored the car, but it never left. It didn't rust. Didn't gather dust. It just sat there, humming like a living thing. Then the dream started again. I was back in the house with too many mirrors. Back in the cabin. Back in the twisting hallway beneath the floorboards. And always, I ended up at the tower. Each time, I chose differently. Each time, I still ended up in the chair. One night, I dreamed of the girl again. She stood in my living room, barefoot, dripping with black water. You still think you left, she said. You didn't. I shook my head in the dream. I'm awake. I got out. I survived. She tilted her head. Then why are we still here? Behind her, I saw the others. The faceless ones. The versions of me with stitched mouths and hollow eyes. They reached toward me, and I woke up in the car. I don't know how I got there. I sat in the driver's seat. The key already in the ignition. The map on the passenger seat. But this time, there was something else in the car. A figure in the passenger seat. Not the girl. Not a stranger. Me. He looked straight ahead. Didn't move. Didn't blink. Who are you? I asked. My voice cracked and hoarse. He didn't speak. Just raised his hand and pointed at the road ahead. And when I turned to look, the world outside the windshield wasn't my neighborhood anymore. It was Old Harlow. Fog-shrouded. Moonlit. The trees bent inward like they remembered me. The road had found me again. And this time, I hadn't even turned onto it. I started driving. The road was different now. It recognized me. It didn't play the same tricks. It didn't need to. The mile markers were gone. The forest no longer tried to whisper. It screamed. Faces pressed against the trees, not in the bark, but growing out of it. Some of them were mine. All of them were watching. My double never spoke, just stared ahead. I tried to turn back, but the wheel wouldn't move. I tried to stop the car, but the brakes didn't respond. I was a passenger now. 2. We drove for hours, maybe days. Time folded in on itself. The radio played a new sound now. It was a heartbeat again, but this time in reverse. A heartbeat unraveling. Eventually, the car stopped. In front of a tunnel I'd never seen before. Moss-covered, huge, and carved above it, in letters made of bone, "No one leaves twice." I turned to the passenger seat, but the other me was gone. Only the map remained. This time, it wasn't spiral. It wasn't a road. It was a circle, and the words, "This is your last exit." I stepped out of the car. The ground beneath me writhed. The tunnel pulsed. And from deep within, I heard the voice again. Mine, crying, begging, but not for escape, not for mercy, for forgetting. I looked behind me. The car was gone. The road was gone. There was only the tunnel now. And at its entrance, the girl, she held out her hand. But this time, her face had changed. It wasn't hers anymore. It was mine. And she whispered, "Time to meet what's driving. Where the road ends." I didn't take her hand. Not at first. How could I? She was me, or something wearing my skin, my voice, my memories. Her face shimmered like oil, occasionally slipping into the face of the girl I'd met in the cabin, then back into mine again. But her eyes remained fixed, deep, empty. Still, I followed her, because what else was left? The tunnel loomed ahead, dark and yawning like a throat ready to swallow. The ceiling was lined with crooked, rusted lights that flickered to life one by one as we stepped inside. Each bulb lit up with a sound like bone cracking. The further we walked, the colder it became. Not the kind of cold you feel on your skin. No, this cold sank into the thoughts themselves. I forgot why I had walked in, then forgot how long I'd been walking, then forgot whether I was walking at all. Time unraveled. The lights blinked out behind us as we moved forward, and the tunnel curved ever so slightly down. I turned to look at her, my double, but she was gone. Now I was walking alone. Except I wasn't. Footsteps echoed beside me, perfectly synced. My breathing duplicated. Then a whisper, soft, a voice like mine, only older. "You've always been here." The tunnel opened, and I stood at the edge of a room made entirely of mirrors. But these weren't reflections. They were windows. Each pane of glass showed a different version of me, living different lives. One married, one in prison, one alone in a forest, one lying dead in a bathtub, one standing on a rooftop, staring down, one still walking the original road, never found. I stepped closer. The reflections moved on their own. Every one of them looked at me and smiled. Then they spoke together, voices layered and warped, echoing like a congregation of ghosts. "You made it." My voice trembled. "What is this place?" "The end," they replied. "The engine room. The center. The truth." The center of what? I turned. There was no door. No way out. Only a single seat in the middle of the mirrored floor. And a steering wheel. Old. Worn. Cracked leather. No dashboard. No car. Just a wheel. Floating. Waiting. The reflections continued to whisper. Every road needs a driver. Every warning needs a voice. Every story a storyteller. And I finally understood. I hadn't escaped. I hadn't been hunted. I had been selected. All of this, Old Harlow, the Watcher's Hollow, the girl, the tower, the copies of myself, was a process, a filter. The road didn't just consume souls. It curated them, picked the ones who could handle it, not to destroy them, but to use them. I stepped to the seat. The steering wheel turned toward me. I gripped it, and something ancient shifted. The mirrors shattered, exploded outward in a soundless pulse, and beyond them was not darkness. But roads, countless roads, webbing out like veins across every imaginable reality. Abandoned highways, dirt paths in forgotten forests, side streets no one remembers building, dead-end gravel tracks that show up only when no one is looking. All of them connected, all of them part of this. And I was the driver now. The road surged beneath my feet, and my mind split open. I felt them, the lost, the travelers. Every person who ever stumbled into the road's grasp. I heard their screams, their prayers, their final thoughts before they vanished, and I knew what I had to do. I opened my eyes, and I was back, at the wheel of the black sedan. Only this time, I wasn't alone. A boy sat beside me, trembling, clutching a map. "I don't know where I am," he said. I looked at him, and I remembered every version of me who had said those same words, every soul who had begged the road for a second chance. I took the map from his hands. It was blank, just like mine had been, and I smiled, because now I understood the last truth. The road doesn't want to trap you. It wants you to choose, to face yourself, all of yourself. The road is a mirror, and some of us are just meant to drive. Epilogue. You ever feel it? That strange pull? That road you've passed 100 times, but never really seen? That voice on the radio speaking in static that almost sounds like a whisper? That unshakable feeling that if you take the next left, everything might change? If it ever happens, don't follow it, unless you're ready, because there are still warning signs. But not everyone hears them, and not everyone comes back. But if you do, if the road lets you out, then maybe, like me, you'll start to wonder who's really behind the wheel. The end.